Hello, Benjamin Brown. Today is July 30th. So I just wanted to add a little bit to my last video log and talk a little bit about all the different abuses that I've experienced directly and indirectly, and that I've witnessed and that I've heard about or know about. There seems to be a situation going on where somebody's trying to convince me that people really don't have it that bad, and that people aren't really suffering, or people aren't really hungry. When I've grown up in a world where I've learned that people are starving in third world countries, and where uh, there's this social injustice that is imposed by a capitalistic, industrialist social hierarchy. I grew up in a small city called Montebello. It's just on the other side of East Los Angeles and Commerce. So I've experienced essentially what it's like to live in California. I've been told, or I've been taught, or I've experienced that California seems to be a military ran and operated state. It also seems to be controlled and dominated by the agricultural industry, and also by the entertainment industry, or at least that's what they purport. It seems to be like there's other foreign presences in California, but I'm not entirely certain about how empowered they are, or how much control they have over the different things that happen there. I'm from essentially a lower middle class family, or an upper lower class family. My father was a state college graduate, and my mother actually never graduated from high school because her schooling was grade school, because she grew up in Mexico. And there's this really big social injustice and social class difference between growing up and going to public school in a place like Mexico, and then going to public school in a place like the United States. Of course, all of the things that we have been getting taught aren't necessarily true, and all of the history books and some of the scientific knowledge that they're purporting is actually not true, which lends to the idea that, in fact, some of the public school systems need to investigate some of the things that we've been regarding as our history, and some of the things that we've been regarding as scientific knowledge. There's seems to be this thing in which there seems to be like something that's going on where people are deliberately dividing people, and it seems like I guess it seems like there's people living in poverty that really just don't have access to the same things that people in the middle class have access to, or people even in the upper class have access to. And it seems like there's this whole other group of people who control things, and we don't even really know who they are or where they're from. Obviously, our elected officials aren't really the people that are in charge. We live in a modern day society when people are essentially grown, and I guess I'm the proof that people are conditioned and grown and manipulated for the sole purpose of putting them in certain positions and certain statuses, which essentially incriminates the chief conspiracy, which is growing these people and conditioning these people of all the crimes that all our criminals are actually committing. So essentially, what that means is this chief conspiracy, or this corporate conspiracy, because essentially humanity is now the product of some sort of corporation or corporate industry or mass produced capitalistic consumerism organization. Uh, so, um, so, uh, so the way that they're producing people is actually not really to be of benefit to each other, or not to be catering to each other, or not to be nurturing to each other, and not to be sensitive to each other when it comes to the things that they need, or the things that they desire, or the things that they need to thrive and to flourish mentally, physically, and spiritually. I've been having trouble trying to progress and trying to achieve. And I've had all these different things imposed on me my whole life, and I've been restrained my whole life. One of the things that I experienced directly when I was in third grade and fourth grade was somebody like literally created a situation, an event that traumatized me, and on top of traumatizing me with this thing, with my capacity to just practice mathematics, they deliberately inhibit my capacity to cerebrally actually understand and analyze and break down and problem solve with mathematics. And my when I was inhibited and I was kind of traumatized in third and fourth grade regarding something like multiplication, it completely derailed my capacity to further my mathematic knowledge to the point where I only ever studied Algebra 1 and Algebra 2 in high school. I'm good with reading and writing, science, because of my reading comprehension. I have a relatively decent capacity for reading comprehension, and it's because my father went to a state college, in contrast to my mother, who grew up having studied at a public school in Mexico. So I wanted to talk a little bit more about those kinds of things, and I'm completely certain that there's people in Mexico that don't know that those kinds of things are actually being done to them as well. I know that some of them might have the capacity or the privilege of going to government type schools, but I know that some of the lower classes might not know that their children's capacity to learn and to study things like mathematics and to be interested in things like education might be inhibited. I actually remember being a child and going and studying with my cousin in his class when I visited Mexico when I was just I couldn't have been more than 10. I must have been like about 8 or 9. And I lived in Mexico for about like 8 months, and I've looked at the different books, and I think they seemed kind of expensive, although I'm not really sure. What I've experienced directly is when I would go to things, when I get institutionalized in places like jails. One of the things that I would notice is that the newspaper, the Mexican newspaper La Opinión, there was this really big contrast from the Mexican newspaper to the New York Times. Whereas the New York Times has like crossword puzzles and all these other things that kind of like feed to the intellectual side of a human, like the La Opinión, like you look through it and it's just like, oh, can you spot the differences? And they have like astronomy, not astrology, like Taurus, Pisces, and Cancer, and all that stuff. But like they don't really have like things like crossword puzzles or things that seem to appeal to an educated person. And also some of the things that some of the topics and the way that they, I guess, like word some of the news pieces in the newspaper don't seem to be particularly brilliant. But one of the other things that I can tell you that I've noticed is there seems to be a really big difference in the way that they portray the news in places like Nevada, in contrast to the way they portray the news in some place like Los Angeles. It seems like it might be like kind of dumbed down, and it seems like it would be nothing short of torture. It's not. It seems like they're trying to dumb people down, or they're trying to stimulate them less by the way that they produce it. And I've also noticed that there's like a big difference between something like that and the subject matter of something like BBC, or something that you would watch on a station like PBS, which also is like just as censored, I guess, but still seems to be like a little bit more interested in what they, at the very least, purport to be the global happenings in our modern day society. So Like I said, someone's trying to convince me that there's people all over the place that really don't have it that bad and that really aren't starving, um, and that people have it a lot better than they actually say they do. One of the things that I noticed is I used to be homeless in downtown LA, and I used to cop dope in places like 6th Street and San Julian. And I remember one of the hardest times to cop dope was on Christmas and on New Year's and on Thanksgiving. And I guess what it was is that all the people that were living down there in tents were actually working for police or for some sort of government agency. Occasionally, I would come across a tent, and occasionally I would come across somebody who I could buy dope off of because I remember buying dope, and sometimes I remember getting ripped off too because I got hella ripped off. But I honestly don't think that the way that the situation has been set up is that there's absolutely nobody that's homeless at all. Specifically because I experienced homelessness and I was homeless in downtown LA and I was homeless in Santa Monica Beach. So either somebody's really good about controlling the traffic around me or things aren't as bad as they say they are. But having experienced Mexico and having had to survive on an entry-level job wage in places like Mexico is just nearly nothing short of impossible. I've lived in Mexico and worked entry-level jobs, and at the most you get like 200 to 300 pesos a day, or two to 300 pesos a week, and rent is somewhere around 600 pesos, and then your cell phone and your cell phone bill is about 300 400 pesos. And then on top of that, you'd still need money to buy clothes and food. And it's just literally impossible. You literally have to live on the street and work and then figure something out in order to survive. And I guess the only way that most of the people that survive in Mexico are they already have properties or they're living with people that they know. But it's really difficult. And I can't imagine that it's an ideal situation for all the people out there, especially because I spoke a little bit about price control on things like food production and gasoline and all those different things. One of the things I wanted to say was I believe that there was some point in time where I believe that it is a possibility that there's somebody that is deliberately lacing state mandated vaccines amongst the populations in the United States. I've come across people that when they talk to me and they react to me seem a lot slower, and it could be something that's induced by the implant in their head, but I believe that it also might be the work of some sort of thing that they're lacing the vaccines with. Some people just kind of come off slow or a little bit dopey or a little bit clumsier. And I honestly believe that that's either, if not the work of a tainted vaccine, that it is in fact the work of the implant or a ghost agent that is harassing them. One of the other things that I wanted to talk about was was obviously like some of the abuses or the things that like I'm witnessing or understanding like directly. Obviously, we all have illegal implants in our head, and these implants make it impossible for us to recognize the people around us. I've personally experienced that with these devices in our head. You could be essentially connected to a giant computer and think that you're interacting with the environment when that's not really the case. I guess there's some sort of satirical jokes based on this idea in Matt Groening's Futurama, when they reference like the head museum. So there's like a museum full of heads, and but I guess it's a little bit more of an indirect allusion to the fact that you could be in a giant warehouse full of a bunch of brains connected to a giant supercomputer and think that you're interacting with the true environment. The other thing that I know is that with this ghost technology, it is possible to remove a brain from one person's body and then put it into another body. And because of the device, you can influence the brain and influence the body through the brain into actually accepting each other. So it doesn't even have to be the same blood type. It doesn't even have to be the same race. You could put a white man's body in a black man's body, or put a Chinese man's brain in a white man's body. And also you can put a gay man's brain in a woman's body. And you could put a lesbian's brain in a man's body. I mean, theoretically. And I guess those are some of the problems that we're facing today. Is there seems to be a government conspiracy at work that is deliberately degenerating our communities and conditioning us to behave like animals. And it's to the point now where you can't trust your girlfriends, and how are you going to get married, and you can't trust your boyfriends, and everybody's pitted against each other in just this way that builds a system that makes it impossible for people to really feel secure, on top of the fact that we have no way of defending ourselves against people that are ghost outfit, people that have ghost technology at their disposal. We have no way of defending ourselves against them. Like I said, they inhibit people's capacity to be satisfied with their counterparts, or their wives, or their spouses, or their lovers. One of the things that I know for a fact is when women think about having sex with more than one person, it is in fact because there's a ghost agent that is putting it into the woman's head that like, oh, you should really have a threesome. That's what you want to have, and that's what you like. That would be most gratifying to your impulse and to your ability to be a woman. I know now that the whole point of being a woman is tied to maternal things. I mean, the ultimate physiological and intellectual and spiritual and psychological purpose of a woman is to be a mother. And I don't think that women having sex with more than one man at a time seems to feed the biological desire, or the biological necessity for what the female body was originally intended to be. But it seems to be an issue, because I can't honestly say that I'm always sitting around and thinking about even when I was younger. Like, I mean, I've like seen pornographic images, like stuff like that, but I don't ever really remember, like, I don't sit around and think like, man, I would really love to have like 5 girls jump at me all at the same time. It's not something that like has ever really crossed my mind. And I think that things like that are like, should be kind of alarming, that like our women are being assaulted in such a way that women might honestly sit around and think about those kinds of things, and they're obviously not honest enough or brave enough to say it, even though they're doing things like letting people put penises in their ass, and doing things like swallowing semen. Modern day courtship practices have just gone so kind of unhinged, to the point where people are really just doing things that are irrational. People like to get urinated on. People eat butt when it's dirty. I guess there's like now like people, like I said, there's like things that like we're like all being conditioned to be completely accepting of these behaviors, and we're all being completely conditioned to not only tolerate these behaviors but indulge them. And it seems to be a real problem that nobody's really willing to stand up to these people in charge. I mean, we have men dressing up as women and actually going and getting operations where they get sex changes. And the people that keep joining these militaries and signing up for ghost ops are loyal to these people. They're loyal to the people that are doing these things. So there's a problem, and I'm here to try to address these things. But somebody's deliberately getting in my way, and like I said, somebody's trying to convince me that nothing's really wrong. But I'm always constantly harassed by these ghost agents that I have stationed on me, and I seem to be harassed no matter where I am. So this is the end of my video check-in. I've got another video coming. I'll try to do as good a job as I possibly can.